Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joy at Work. It's always good to have you, and thanks for all the folks who give me positive affirmation and thank me for this. I really enjoy it. It's fun, and it's an opportunity to share. A friend of mine wanted to know if I rehearsed or did a bunch of takes before recording these things. The honest answer is I don't. An idea or thought comes to mind. I read something, I hear something, I have a conversation, whatever. I might process it, make a couple of notes in my head, but for the most part, this is just raw. It's live in that sense, and hopefully you enjoy it because it is that way. If you don't, well, I'm sorry. But anyway, today I want to talk about loose noodles. All right, loose noodles. This concept was introduced to me by a Lyft driver. This lady was taking me to the airport one morning, and we're just talking about life and approach to life, existential type conversations that I'm want to have. And she said her approach is that of a loose noodle, and I found it very interesting. And I asked her to explain, and she explained it to me in this manner. She said, cooked noodles, cooked loose noodles have a firmness to them, and yet they're flexible. And she said, it's important to understand the things that matter to me and then the things that I need to have some flexibility on, or the things I just take or go with the flow. And I found that to be like just wildly cool. It was one of those things where it's like, yep, that's what people need to be able to do from a work perspective. If you want to have joy at work, you have to be a loose noodle. The loose noodle concept to me really reflects something I've said to people for a few years now. Those who work with me have probably heard this. It's don't mistake your preferences for principles. Don't mistake your preferences for principles. I find in a lot of organizations, people spend countless hours debating preferences. Just try the preference and see if it works or not. My preference will be different from yours at times. That's just the way things are because we're different people. We've come up through different paths. We've had different experiences. Some are more experienced, some are less experienced, some have a wide variety of experience, some have a very shallow amount of experience, right? We just come up through different paths and different environments, different backgrounds, right? When I think about my multicultural background, where I was born, where I grew up, where I've lived, that influences the way I view the world. It obviously shapes my preferences a little bit different from somebody maybe who was born in a single state and hasn't moved 300 miles from that area. That's not wrong. It's not right. It's just different. And so when we recognize that we all come to our workplaces with different preferences, it's important that we establish principles and then behave like loose noodles once those have been determined, right? My preferences will not always win, if I can use that term, or might not be the path we decide to go down. Someone else's preferences might be the path we decide to go down. But we should all be okay with that as long as the principles are not being violated or negated. In listening to that lady speak, it was very powerful to hear a sense of calm and reassurance in her because she was very clear about the things she would not negotiate on. And it was a short list. It wasn't like a list of 100 things because that kind of defeats the point. But it was a very short list, and then everything else was kind of like, I'm just gonna go with the flow. And I think we as individuals would benefit from that from an organizational perspective as well. I find many people focused on decisions made in organizations as if they're violations of principles when they're really just an organizational preference. Now, it could be that there's a preference that you just can't deal with and you want to go do something else, and that's okay as well. But don't confuse a preference for a principle. Because when we begin to do that, we shut down ourselves to other, perspectives. We shut down ourselves to other viewpoints. Start with the principles and then say, here are our foundational principles. Now let's talk about the different preferences that might exist and how we work through that. I think you do that, you begin to embody this loose noodle concept, this wonderful Lyft driver shared with me. And I think the more you can embrace a loose noodle uh, stature or perspective, then the more likely it is that you'll find joy at work. All right. Thanks for watching this. Appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.